Hello everyone, it's Jin'taan here, and welcome to a new series. As I'm sure you've seen if you've been frequenting Reddit recently, there's been a lot of posting about the group Absolute Order. And after looking at the SOV map of Providence for the first time in about 5 years, I realised that they were living in the 2v TAC pocket, which is a region of space that has a lot of personal history for me, as it was actually where I first started playing the game in Nullsec all the way back in 2011, with a group known as Elemental Tide. And whilst initially I didn't plan on making any videos about it, I realised that this was a great opportunity to show people the kind of impact you can have as just one player on a major Nullsec campaign, as I think people really underestimate what you can do with a couple of billion ISK and some hard work. So today we're going to go over how I snuck 3 PoSes into hostile space and used them to kill a few hostile ships, and the very basics of Aegis SOV, such as how to lower ADMs and how to harass SOV timers without getting caught. So, setting up a PoS in hostile space used to be something that was fairly difficult and required you to have access to both a Black Ops and a number of blockade runners to be able to be done effectively. But with the introduction of the T2 Upwell blockade runner, the Deluge, it's now something that's within reach of a single account, as the fit that I'm showing on screen has enough cargo capacity to be able to stand up a tower, fuel it for about 3 weeks, and give it a reinforced timer and some basic defences in just one run, whilst also warping in under 4 seconds and having an Interdiction Nullifier, making it very difficult to catch without a dedicated camp in place. After you reach your target system with the Deluge, you then want to wait for a time in which you think that your opponents won't be able to react within 15 minutes, which is their window of opportunity to stop you from anchoring and onlining the tower. In this case, I chose right after downtime. After you're ready, you can then decloak and right-click the tower in your inventory, select Launch for Corporation, and then right-click the tower in space and select Anchor. After that, you can cloak back up and start moving in a direction away from the tower so that you'll be within warp range by the time it's fully anchored. After the control tower has finished anchoring, I recommend that you bookmark the location you ended up at, as this will serve as a perfect ping for later on, and then warp down to the control tower. If you immediately right-click and select Online on the control tower at this point, you will be hit with an error message as you've not put fuel in, which I definitely did for the purposes of demonstration and not because I was being an idiot. But after you fill up the fuel and stromp bay with the appropriate materials, you can then select that option and it will begin the online timer, at which point you can warp back to the ping we made earlier. It is worth noting that the fuel blocks here are not interchangeable, so if you're using a Minmatar control tower, you need Minmatar fuel blocks, and if you're using an Amarr control tower, you need Amarr fuel blocks. I personally wouldn't recommend using the other 2 races of control towers because they're kind of pants, but that is up to you. After the online timer is complete, you can then just warp down to the control tower, right-click and select Manage. Here you can put in a password, and once you've put in your password, the force field will pop and you are now safe. Then, whenever you're ready, you can start anchoring your guns, which you do through right-clicking them in your cargo bay, selecting Launch for Corporation, and then right-clicking the item in space and selecting Anchor. This then generates 6 arrows across all the cardinal directions, which you can click and drag to position the battery to where you want it to be in space. And once you're happy with where it is, you can right-click and select Anchor. You can then online the batteries and make them active by right-clicking them in space and selecting Put Online. However, my recommendation is that you wait until all of your batteries are anchored before you start onlining them, as they can take anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes, which will really break up your flow whilst you're setting up your defences initially. You'll then also need to manually put ammunition in all of your guns, which can again be done through the right-click menu by selecting Access Ammunition Bay and dragging and dropping the ammunition from your cargo into this area. With all that done, you now have a fully functional PoS. Congratulations! But why would you want a PoS in 2025 when we have Upwell structures? Beyond the fact that these are significantly cheaper and easier to set up, the main reason you want to do this is because you simply cannot place an Upwell structure in someone's system if the ADMs are above 4, which only requires a little bit of work from the alliance owning the space to be able to maintain. However, once you have a safe PoS set up, you can make this work much harder, as it only takes a couple of kills before people stop wanting to PvE whilst you're in the system. And due to the relative safety of a PoS, you can go completely AFK while still giving the perception of being a threat by simply having your presence in local. The PoS itself also serves as an amazing force multiplier if it ever gets attacked, through both its guns and the ability to stay near the edge of the force field and disengage by becoming untargetable whenever you wish, with me being able to turn this 4v1 into 2 kills, though I do have to commend them for trying something rather than just relocating, which is what most PvE-focused players would do. Anyway, once you have successfully lowered your opponent's ADMs below 4 through this PoS camping method, you can begin to start using Entosis links to force your opponents to respond and then just run away, denying them any content and making them waste their time. And in my experience, the best ship for this is the Rapier, with something similar to the fit that I'm showing on screen now. I have to say, I was incredibly surprised at how long it took for a response to turn up for this first attempt to create a timer, with the Entosis link reaching just 2 minutes before completion, before this heroic Griffin turned up and managed to hit the 44% chance of a jam on my Rapier. I think that the Prospect and Sacrilege that turned up a little bit later probably would have been enough to push me off anyway, but given I had a Loki cloaked and I could have engaged, it certainly would have been a lot closer than it ended up being. But with the objective successfully defended, I decided to simply web down the Prospect so that it couldn't catch me and leave the grid. And I think that this is probably a good time to mention that I don't really harbour any ill will towards the average AO line member or any of their allies. At the end of the day, a lot of them are new players and they simply don't know that there are better options out there. And I'd like to stress that being part of AO probably is not going to exclude you from being recruited by any other group, despite what Governor Lee or some of your leadership might say. And so, whilst those are the people who I have a problem with, unfortunately the nature of EVE warfare just means that you're in the way, and I'm very sorry about that. Hopefully though, no matter who you fly for, this has been an interesting and informative video. And yeah, I guess I'm back. Fly safe, everyone. Oh, and before I go, in the interest of full disclosure, I do want to say that I came back a couple of days later and tried Entosising again with another method that's less skill intensive, and this happened. So good job, RMC. Shame about that Fortizar though.